constant push for mass immigration. It's not going to be the new elite who deal with the consequences of that. The constant push for more deregulation, more globalization, more prioritizing the interests of big business. It's not going to be the new elite who will suffer the consequences of that. It's going to be the working class. It's going to be non-graduates in the towns outside of the cities. The constant push for gender identity, the constant push for denigrating the nation. It's not going to be the new elite who worry about that. They don't get their sense of status and belonging from the nation. They get it from their achieved identities, from their education, from their professional success. It's going to be the working class plumber and electrician who really does care about the nation, who sees that his membership or her membership of the nation as a really important part of who they are. They are increasingly pushing ideas that I think are disastrous for everybody else, but which they won't ever really feel the consequence of. They didn't want to challenge globalization. They didn't want to challenge mass immigration. They didn't want to give more of a voice to the rest of the country. We saw this time and time again in how they tried to essentially dilute Brexit to the point of it being meaningless, how they didn't reform the institutions and let other voices into those institutions. We also partly saw it during COVID, where anybody who voiced a dissenting view was stigmatized and silenced as being a crank or a lunatic. And this is really the second part of the story. And unless we reform those institutions and give people more of a stake in the direction of their societies, especially on these big cultural issues like immigration and identity and belonging, then we're going to see a lot more rebellions in the years to come. The Conservative Party didn't really understand the extent to which the country's politics were being realigned. The party was given this unique electorate, this unique coalition of working class, non-graduate, older voters, cultural conservative voters. They wanted less immigration. They wanted regions outside of London invested in. They were skeptical of what I call hyper-globalization. They were skeptical of the constant prioritization of big business over national interests. And they were very anxious about the rise of radical woke progressivism, the erosion of free speech, the rise of cancel culture, the erosion of boundaries between men and women, and the constant rewriting of our national history. Now, the Conservatives could have leaned into that realignment, John. They could have reshaped their electorate for the long term, which is what I actually suggested to Boris Johnson on 2 occasions when I presented my research to people in and around Number 10 that they should do. That conservatism needed to reinvent itself. It needed to stay committed to this new electorate. What happened, however, is they didn't do that. And they didn't do that partly because Boris Johnson was always a bohemian. He was a cosmopolitan. He was essentially a liberal. He wasn't really a conservative. And you can see that in the policy decisions he took. He liberalized immigration from outside of Europe. He even, John, removed a requirement for British companies to advertise British jobs in Britain first. This was not somebody who understood the general direction of travel out there in the country.